Hello and welcome to Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. We're your hosts. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Sean.
And we're glad you're here. For the next 15 minutes, we'll talk about a sales issue, big and small, for salespeople, sales leaders, and selling situations. We're glad you're here, and let's get started.
A long time ago, when I was clean shaven right out of school, I was learning how to sell. In that time, I learned the hard way what real sales could be and what real sales shouldn't be. We're here today with a guest, Tom. Tom, we're so glad you're here, and you've got some insight on all things how to show up well for a sales appointment. Tom, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here, Kevin. Yeah, it's a great topic, isn't it? Because it kind of takes us back to our first days when we were just young salespeople out there doing our thing and kind of cringy. We did it all wrong. And until somebody actually either showed us the way, took pity on us as a mentor, or we read about it, we figured out that there was a different way to do it. But boy, those early days, we thought we were doing it right. And it was pretty embarrassing.
Thank you very much for being on, Tom. Tom, before we get too much into it, do us a little favor, do a little bit of a background, not much, but do a little bit of a background on who you are, kind of a little bit of your history. You look like you're as old as I am, so you can talk about that if you want to. I look pretty old, so that's why I say that. I'm not young like Kevin, even though I have more hair than Kevin.
Well, I will say young at heart anyway, but yes, I'm Tom Daly. My business is Focus Insights Group here in little old Ormond Beach, Florida. I'm in Central Florida on the coast, and I'm a reseller of sales acceleration services. So they're my brand and my love, and I help clients hopefully have the greatest sales year they'll ever do. And I'm living my great life here. Here in Ormond Beach, I'm here with my wife. This is what I do. I will never go back to work for anybody else. I'm living my best life. I have 2 stepdaughters and 5 grandchildren, and my wife and I love to travel. So it's kind of living the life and doing what I was meant to do.
Well, thank you for being on. We do appreciate it. So when we were starting, we were talking about doing it right, doing it wrong. And Tom, I think you have some insight in there. So you want to give us some insight, give our listeners that are out there. And remember, we kind of focus on salespeople that don't have a great manager. And maybe they do have a great manager, but definitely the ones that don't have a great manager. Sales leaders that are great managers or want to be great managers, or CEOs that are kind of filling in that role and doing their own management, or maybe even doing their own sales.
There's probably nothing more important to a business than revenue. And it is astounding how either amateur or not well thought out just sales processes are. Small companies, medium-sized companies, large companies. And where that dichotomy gets weird is entrepreneurs and CEOs, they seem to know how to sell. Either they came up with the thing or they figured out how to make it better, and sure as shooting, they went out there and found customers, and sure as shooting, the thing just launched. But somehow they don't know about sales. So as we all know, the scalability factor is what happens. Now I have to get other non-entrepreneurs to actually be able to sell my stuff. And it seems easy. Hire some bright people, have them go out there and pitch it because it'll sell itself and they should be successful. And then all of a sudden we see performance that jumps all over the board because we don't have a well thought out strategy at all. When I talk to salespeople about it, I'm like, why did you get into this? And a lot of people are like, well, to talk people out of money they don't want to spend. I'm like, nah, not at all. The professionals that you meet that are awesome at sales, they just simply like helping. And they like helping people at a critical way where they can't help themselves. And so when you come into a client, it's not about you. It never is. It's about what's going on in their world. They took the meeting, so something's going on. So what are they trying to accomplish? What's their dream? What's not working? What absolutely keeps them up at night? And what would they love to accomplish and think maybe is impossible? We need to understand those things so that we can be a business advisor. Notice I didn't say salesperson. You've got to be a business advisor to help them get to where they are. And if you're sincere and you're really asking the right questions and you get to the right answers, you will be in a position to help them because we know how to do it and to train other folks to do it. And you know what you become? You become indispensable. And what a lot of salespeople don't know is now they're never going to let you go. You're their go-to because you're helping them. And what that becomes is now that's going to be a referral base. That's how you're going to be able to leverage that with other people. So helping people understand that it's possible, really understanding what their pains are or what they're really, really trying to accomplish, And then your credibility comes from the fact that this is what you do for a living. You have helped many other people before them get what they want. And you need lots more information and able to even figure out whether I can help you or not. And it seems so simple when I'm saying it. I know you guys are like, yeah, well, that's obvious too. But it is amazing to me in my experience how few professional salespeople ever do that. And it's a shame.
It's interesting you bring that up. It's interesting to me because we have all sat on the side of the table that you just described and said, I can help this person and I want to help this person. But for our listening audience out there, let's scratch on that a little bit, because I think that the people who are listening here that are in that CEO seat who are accustomed to having full autonomy, but not being able to hire well or to get people to do the things that they want them to do to be a good salesperson. Scratch on that a little bit and tell them how you make or help a CEO pivot so they coach people along that direction, or how do you help?
That's really important. And you mentioned hiring and things like that. It's amazing too, the other piece where sales is sort of tolerated as not having structure. Somehow it's a different part of the business that doesn't have structure. Everybody does it themselves. There's lone wolves out there. And so the CEO or the owner is trying to figure out, how do I find that lone wolf, that unusual person that somehow just gets it, they know how to do it. And in fact, all three of us know that in reality, sales is about as mundane on the metric side as accounting. You have to know who it is you should be calling on and should not be calling on. That's really first. We can't help everybody. So you got to niche down to the person that absolutely is. You got to figure that out. Figure out what's important to them, what they're trying to accomplish, do your homework, all of that. Then you have to make sure, well, I'm going to have to ping probably 100 people in order to get 10 meetings. Well, I've got to have that metric, so I have to have that regularly. And then when I'm going to hire, I can't hire somebody who is the loosey-goosey, I got my way of doing it. I'm not really organized, but boy, can I sell. We're going to find out that that is not scalable. It's not predictable. It's not forecastable. And in fact, it's not something that's scalable. So what we really have to do is understand who is it we do, what kind of sales personality do we need. Then we have to make sure that we have the metrics in place. We have to have the ideal customer. Who is it that we're selling to? Because honestly, they have to know who we need to run away from. If I walk in and I realize this is not the ideal client, it's not going to work, personality's not even jiving, I want to leave professionally and politely, but I want to say, hey, not a match, see you later, because I have work to do. And all too often, salespeople will just try to sell whoever will talk to them. So that CEO needs to understand it's a different animal. And I would say to that CEO that probably knows how to sell somehow on their own, please don't do it on your own. There are many different resources out there that help. And I would say the greatest companies out there don't do it on their own. They're good at what they do. And they're really good at knowing when I'm out of my league, I need to bring in a professional or professionals that can help me get where I do. So my advice to that CEO is understand the process, understand your way is not going to work for other people just because you can't clone yourself. And you really need professional help to get you over that hump. Because honestly, if you had to fix your own computers, that would not be a great idea. You would call in somebody that would know how to do it. It's the same for sale. And it's probably more important because revenue is your most important goal.
We had a guest on about a year ago. His name was Tim Warren. He had founded a company and he talked a little bit about the challenge that he had because he was a very good salesperson growing up in his career. He was trying to scale his company to be massive. He had to get through that issue of the sales guy that I'm hiring isn't as good as me. But I like to talk to my clients that are CEOs that are trying to do that sales thing themselves, or maybe they've hired a couple and they're frustrated in that process. That it's different selling as the CEO, the owner, the founder of the company. It's a totally different experience because sales is about transferring trust. Kevin's heard me talk about this a lot. It's easy to transfer trust when it's your company. It's really easy. It's harder when you're a salesperson. Even if you're an empowered salesperson, it is still harder to transfer that trust. And so you need to have processes in place and tools in place that let those salespeople do that job without being the owner, because they're not the owner.
Some of those CEOs, and you hear this a lot of time, they'll have their own accounts, which I actually think is a good deal. I think that if the CEO or the owner is going to be the visionary of the company, it's likely that they're always going to manage probably the most important relationships out there. It's just good for them to stay in the game, and they probably need that CEO to CEO credibility. I get it. And you're right. But the fact of the matter is the CEO can't be the rep for everybody. That's not possible. So we have to create scalable ways, proof sources, things that speak directly to the client's question, not to why I think I'm great, but why this is going to work, so that that sales rep has credibility in the moment. I would also say if they are that business advisor, and again, going back to challenger sale, being able to say, I hear where you got there, but let me just tell you, no offense, you're wrong. And this is why. Let me spell it out to you. A number of companies went down that same path. It seems logical, so I know where your thinking is. It's sound. But what ended up happening is they found that there was a real blind spot at every step of the way, and they had to change the way they were doing it. Happens all the time. So I would say your approach is steeped in common sense, but not in proof. And as a good sales rep, as a great sales rep, you have to be that business advisor. And when the moment is right, you have to tell them they're wrong. And that's going to do two things. Number one, you're delivering value to the client more so than other sales reps. And by the way, you're starting to look like a leader, somebody that's a part of the CEO's team. So that I think if you handle that correctly, you may assuage that concern right out of the gate if you handle it correctly. But the CEO, it's a valid concern, but we have to get over that.
Couldn't agree more. The hump is probably the hardest thing. Now, for the newer salespeople that might be listening to that, what Tom just talked about was not go tell your customers they're crazy and wrong.
No.
What Tom started by saying was way back in the conversation, right when we started this episode, Tom talked about doing great research, being informed, knowing about your customer, all those things that help you recognize when somebody might be getting off track. Now, another way of saying that for all you young salespeople or new salespeople out there might be, hey, understanding your market is really important. Understanding your value proposition is equally as important. When you marry those together and you bring insights to CEOs, you become that trusted advisor. You don't walk in, tell them something cool and expect to be trusted. You have to earn that trust. Tom, what would you add on to that?
That is so true. And I think that what ends up happening is people lose confidence in those scenarios. They feel like they've just got to say the right thing. And, I don't want to mess this thing up. When in fact, it is an exchange back and forth. And it has to be an adult exchange where we're giving, we're taking, we're offering insights. We may say, hey, I disagree with you. And I mean, however polite. But that is the essence of it. And it's funny you said that because when we're salespeople, we're selling whatever our service or product is. It's going to be great. It'll never fail. It's going to be perfect. It doesn't break, and you'll have it for the rest of your life. And the reality is that it will break. Things will go wrong. Things happen. We will fall down on the job sometime, but we have a process for that. What I'm here to say is that you can trust me that when things go south, we don't. We understand it. We accept responsibility. We fix it and move forward. And that kind of relationship is going to go on and on because the CEO, if they're honest with themselves, they're saying, well, that happens in my company all the time. We're like, yeah, of course it does. It's the ability to identify issues quickly, to be able to figure out what the solution is and execute in real time. You'll have credibility. And I've always said some of the clients that I've had where we really laid an egg, it was bad. But because we absolutely put all hands on deck and said, my bad, we've got it. Here's what we're going to do to fix it. And then after we did it, was that acceptable? It was fine. The client was hot as a firecracker. But once we showed the commitment to absolutely resolving the issue, they became lifetime friends. And so remember, it's a human business we're in. Do not try to make it machine-like. Make it a friendship, maybe not a friendship, but a deep relationship that adds a lot of value to your company. That's who you want to be doing business with.
This is really interesting, Tom, but unfortunately, we are really getting towards the end of our time, and we try to get these done in 15 minutes, as I think you know. So what we'd like to do is have you come back, because I would like to really understand if you could give some insight in our next episode, and we'll start off and go wherever it goes, but I'd really like to know, get that brand new salesperson. He can probably talk features, maybe talk benefits, but then how do you have that business conversation? How do we coach that salesperson that wants to be a better salesperson? Let's start off with that next time, and then we'll take it wherever it goes. Will you come back next week?
Great. Sounds great. I'll be here.
Cool. Thank you very much, Tom. So everybody out there in listener land, please come back next week and listen to Tom share more wisdom about sales process and sales expertise. Thank you very much, Tom. Thank you very much, Kevin. See you next week. Thank you very much for joining us on this podcast of Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. We hope that we were able to share some valuable insight, valuable knowledge with you to make your selling adventures easier and more successful. Please join us every week. We drop these on Tuesday afternoon at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Please subscribe to us in your favorite podcast player. Also, please join us on LinkedIn, where we do a CEO workshop. And that CEO workshop is dedicated monthly to big questions that CEOs are having and how to grow their business and drive sales. You can find us on LinkedIn. Just search for Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. Thank you very much. Have a great day.